I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Kelly. We are back with another video. If you guys are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you're a returning listener or subscriber, thank you so much for being a friend as always. And I appreciate everyone who's watching this video. I thank you all in advance. And please subscribe if you're interested, guys. So I wanted to come on here and get into this Putin interview that has everyone shaken in their boots. Okay, people are going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over this damn interview between Tucker Carlson and Putin, Vladimir Putin of Russia, you know, and I have some thoughts. So we're going to go over just some of the points that I found interesting during this interview, and I'm going to give my super hot and fresh takes. And yeah, I want to know what you guys think about this. I just want to start off by saying that I think it's absolutely ridiculous the way that they treated Tucker, first of all, for even doing this interview and for wanting to go and interview Vladimir Putin, who is definitely noteworthy and worthy of being interviewed, hands down for sure, and has been interviewed by countless other U.S. journalists in the past. And it just seems only natural that right now, in the time that we're currently in, he should be interviewed and allow the American people to kind of do with the information what they will and to make their own determinations. But no, that's not what we have here. We have people who are calling for Tucker Carlson to be labeled as a treasonous traitor and just talking out the side of their neck about how he is a Russian propagandist, you know, all this crazy shit. Instead of just allowing him to be a journalist and allowing people to objectively watch whatever it is that they, you know, discuss in their interview and make up their own minds, that's not what they want to do. They want to fill your heads with their own propaganda. So far be it for them to allow you to watch Vladimir Putin's own propaganda, because they got their own shit to shove into your heads and to make you believe. So they just don't like it. They don't like it at all. But, you know, me, myself, personally, being someone who has been totally against this Ukraine-Russia war and the U.S. involvement in any way from the very beginning, you know, I've had some thoughts on Vladimir Putin, and I do think that this interview did kind of sway me a little bit in that, not that I support the war, never that, ever, but, you know, I think that it wasn't as impressive as a lot of people are making it out to be. And I mean that, you know, it was kind of a snooze fest in a way. But there were some interesting things that were said. There were some, you know, a little bit of shockers of you know, mic drop moments. And we're going to get into them. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about how much of a retard Joe Biden is and how he has been deemed to be an old, befuddled, buffoonish, forgetful old man who is pretty much not really capable or mentally able to be running America, but yet here we are. So let's get into it, guys.
President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, shot February 6, 2024 at about 7 p.m. in the building behind us, which is, of course, the Kremlin. The interview, as you will see if you watch it, is primarily about the war in progress, the war in Ukraine, how it started, what's happening, and most presently, how it might end. One note before you watch. At the beginning of the interview, we asked the most obvious question, which is, why did you do this? Did you feel a threat, an imminent physical threat? And that's your justification. And the answer we got shocked us. Putin went on for a very long time, probably half an hour, about the history of Russia going back to the 8th century. And honestly, we thought this was a filibustering technique and found it annoying and interrupted him several times. And he responded he was annoyed by the interruption. But we concluded in the end, for what it's worth, that it was not a filibustering technique. There was no time limit on the interview. We ended it after more than 2 hours. Instead, what you're about to see seemed to us sincere, whether you agree with it or not. Vladimir Putin believes that Russia has a historic claim to parts of Western Ukraine.
And that is one thing I will say that did come across, was that Vladimir Putin is a patriot for his own country. He is a nationalist, and for that reason alone, I can get behind him. And not to say that like I'll get behind him, like, you know, go Vladimir Putin. No, I'm just like, I support his belief that he should be allowed, as the president of Russia, as the leader of Russia, to go on and to protect Russia's interests at all costs, and to be firmly and unapologetically patriotic towards his own country. I think that's great. I think that's the way that it should be. I think that I wish American leaders were more like this. And one thing that I did really take away from this interview that I think is important, and people may or may not like this or may or may not want to hear this, but I think in some ways that in order to lead a country, okay, this world is massive. I mean, there are 8 billion people on this planet, or close to it. And people are so different. Look at this country as an example, and what's happened to it. You cannot really have people with so many different points of views all across the spectrum, different areas, different topics, different subject matter. You know, like, everyone thinks so completely differently from one another, which is, you know, okay on some levels, but on other levels, it doesn't really work when it comes to having a functioning country. You know, like a working and a proper country. So I think on some levels that it's human nature to be led by a strong male leader. Okay, this is the way that the world has always worked, with kings and other emperors and people like that, like throughout the course of history. You know, like, a lot of people need to be led. And I'm talking about, like, you know, we've talked about this before on this channel, but like, if you look at the IQ spectrum, most people are like mid-level IQ. Like, most of the people fall into that, like, you know, middle range. And then there's a little bit of people on the like retard spectrum, and then there's a little bit of people on the genius spectrum. So for the most part, the people in the middle, and even the people like at the end, they don't really like they don't really make the most sound decisions most of the time in regards to their lives and what's best for them, what's best for their country, what's best for the world. Okay, and I'm trying to make this as succinct as possible, but I just think that, like, you know, not to say that America needs a king or we need a dictator or anything like that, but I think that it does require a little bit of a strong arm and a little bit of a firmness in regards to dictating what should be law, what should be the morals and the standards of a country. And those things do need to be met. If they're met with resistance, then that resistance needs to be met with force. You know, and I don't want to say that, like, I want us to turn into any sort of like negative stereotype of like failed countries of centuries past. But I think that, like, there's something to be said about having a strong male leader who rules with complete firmness and complete unwavering assuredness in himself, and who radiates a man who actually has confidence and who is making decisions for the good of the people. And that's just not what we have. And we haven't had that for a very long time. We've had these bureaucrats and these lifelong politicians who are out for themselves. And that is why our country is in the place that it's in now. And we've promoted diversity. We've promoted individualism. We've promoted this thought that, like, you can be an American and still hate this country. You can be an American and be anti-America. It's absolutely ridiculous and self-destructive in every way, shape, and form. And if we don't have a Vladimir Putin type of figure who gets power in this country and kind of takes back the reins and pulls back on him a little bit, on all the people who really need reining in, they really do. Okay, I'm looking at all of us women. Okay, ladies, if you're a little bit crazy and you can admit to that, I think you know what I'm talking about. Okay, we all have a little bit of need to be reined in. Okay, and even some of the men. Okay, we have men who are wearing dresses. Okay, that needs to be reined in. We need to get this ship back on its course, because otherwise it's going to be like the Titanic in this bitch very soon.
During decades, the Poles were engaged in Polonization of this part of the population. They introduced their language there, tried to entrench the idea that this population was not exactly Russians, that because they lived on the fringe, they were Ukrainians. Originally, the word Ukrainian meant that the person was living on the outskirts of the state, along the fringes, or was engaged in a border patrol service. It didn't mean any particular ethnic group. So the Poles were trying to in every possible way to colonize this part of the Russian lands, and actually treated it rather harshly, not to say cruelly. All that led to the fact that this part of the Russian lands began to struggle for their rights. They wrote letters to Warsaw demanding that their rights be observed and people be commissioned here, including to Kiev.
I beg your pardon, can you tell us what period? I'm losing track of where in history we are. The Polish oppression of Ukraine.
It was in the 13th century. Now I will tell you what happened later, and give the dates so that there is no confusion. And in 1654, even a bit earlier, the people who were in control of the authority over that part of the Russian lands addressed Warsaw, I repeat, demanding that they send them to rulers of Russian origin and Orthodox faith. When Warsaw did not answer them, and in fact rejected their demands, they turned to Moscow, so that Moscow took them away. So that you don't think that I'm inventing things, I'll give you these documents.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're inventing it. I'm not sure why it's relevant to what happened 2 years ago.
But still, these are documents from the archives, copies. Here are the letters from Bogdan Khmelnytsky, the man who then controlled the power in this part of the Russian lands that is now called Ukraine. He wrote to Warsaw demanding that their rights be upheld, and after being refused, he began to write letters to Moscow, asking to take them under the strong hand of the Moscow Tsar. There are copies of these documents. I will leave them for your good memory. There is a translation into Russian. You can translate it into English later.
So, and this is what I mean when it's like, boring, snooze fest. Okay, thank you, sir, but that's, he was very elusive in this interview, which, like I said, I was disappointed. I was hoping he'd be a little bit more candid. I was hoping that there would be more discussion that would be a bit more pointed and more, like, direct. That just did not happen whatsoever. Tucker would ask a question and then Putin would go on like this like kind of off base rant situation. He would just kind of go left when Tucker was going right, which is to be expected on some regard. But I think in another way, it's like he asked at the very beginning of this interview, like, do you want this to be like entertainment interview or like a serious interview? And Tucker said serious interview. Well, I think he should have said entertainment, because it sure as hell wasn't entertaining. He spent the first portion, as Tucker said, of the interview giving the history of Russia and Ukraine in a very detailed format, which God bless him for knowing it. And I mean, interesting, I guess, if you're into that sort of thing. But the question was, why did you start the war in Ukraine? And for what reason did you have to acquire those lands that you feel entitled to acquire, which is a good question. And I think a lot of us already knew the answer to, because it's obvious. Ukraine's not a real place, okay? Which is what he's basically saying here. Ukraine is not a real country. It was never a real thing. Like it was basically formed out of land that was broken apart from the Soviet Union, and it had always belonged to Russia. There's people still in Ukraine that speak only Russian, and so that's what he's trying to say, that basically those regions and those people who classify themselves as Russian, yes, there are people who live in Ukraine that feel separate and apart from Russia and don't want to have that association with Russia and do feel like they're Ukrainian, whatever that means. But it's like, this is a country that was established in the 90s, okay? Like, officially. This is not some historical land like Russia is, or China, or even America. You know, we have going on 300, 400 years of history. So it's like, Ukraine, y'all are cute and all, but okay, whatever. So that's basically what he was trying to say, but he just absolutely long-windedly went about answering that.
But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the war began, and Poland fell prey to the policies it had pursued against Czechoslovakia, as under the well-known Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Part of the territory, including western Ukraine, was to be given to Russia. Thus, Russia, which was then named as USSR, regained its historical lands. After the victory in the Great Patriotic War, as we call World War II, all those territories were ultimately enshrined as belonging to Russia, to the USSR. As for Poland, it received, apparently in compensation, the lands which had originally been German. The eastern parts of Germany, these are now western lands of Poland. Of course, Poland regained access to the Baltic Sea and Danzig.
Excuse me, sir. Please don't give Germany any ideas, okay? The last thing we need is for, a young German artist to rise up and get any more ideas, okay? For the love of God, let's not start up that, situation again, because Lord knows that the Jews will fall over and become, absolutely unconsolable if anything like that were to even be mentioned. So let's just rein that back in.
Which was once again given its Polish name. So this was how this situation developed. In 1922, when the USSR was being established, the Bolsheviks started building the USSR and established the Soviet Ukraine, which had never existed before.
Right.
Stalin insisted that those republics be included in the USSR as autonomous entities. For some
Also, does anyone else feel like the translator is like, he's saying like very few words, and it seems like Putin's like spitting out some bars. Like he seems like he's just like, and it's like the interviewer's like talking like this, and this is the translation of what Putin is saying. I'm like, hello, like what's going on? It's given sketchy. It's given, I don't know.
And you've mentioned this many times. I think it's a fair point. And many in America thought that relations between Russia and the United States would be fine with the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, that the opposite happened. But you've never explained why you think that happened, except to say that the West fears a strong Russia, but we have a strong China the West does not seem very afraid of. What about Russia, do you think, convinced policymakers they had to take it down?
The West is afraid of strong China more than it fears a strong Russia, because Russia has 150 million people and China has 1.5 billion population, and its economy is growing by leaps and bounds, or 5% a year. It used to be even more. But that's enough for China. As Bismarck once put it, potentials are the most important. China's potential is enormous. It is the biggest economy in the world today in terms of purchasing power parity and the size of the economy. It has already overtaken the United States quite a long time ago, and it is growing at a rapid clip. Let's not talk about who is afraid of whom. Let's not reason in such terms. And let's get into the fact that after 1991, when Russia expected that it would be welcomed into the brotherly family of civilized nations, nothing like this happened. You tricked us. I don't mean you personally when I say you. Of course, I'm talking about the United States. The promise was that NATO would not expand eastward, but it happened 5 times. There were 5 waves of expansion. We tolerated all that. We were trying to persuade them. We were saying, please don't. We are as bourgeois now as you are. We are a market economy and there is no communist party power. Let's negotiate. Moreover, I have also said this publicly before. There was a moment when A certain rift started growing between us. Before that, Yeltsin came to the United States. Remember, he spoke in Congress and said the good words. God bless America. Everything he said were signals. Let us in. Remember the developments in Yugoslavia before the Yeltsin was lavished with praise? As soon as the developments in Yugoslavia started, he raised his voice in support of Serbs, and we couldn't but raise our voices for Serbs in their defense. I understand that there were complex processes underway there. I do. But Russia could not help raising its voice in support of Serbs, because Serbs are also a special and close to us nation.
And you know, it is a very odd thing, isn't it? I mean, let's just think about it for 1 second. Why hasn't Russia been welcomed into like the Western alliance, like the, you know, whatever, unholy, whatever you want to say, like there's all these different nations who we consider to be like basically aligned with us in terms of similarities in regards to culture, in regards to economics, in regards to even like looks wise, you know, and like Russia fits right in line with that. I mean, and if you want to say it's because of what happened during the Soviet Union, I call bullshit, because how is Germany welcomed back with open arms? Like for quite some time now, Germany has been a partner with the US after what they did. You know, God, the world's worst crime to ever have been committed in the world ever in life, you know, Germany was responsible for, but yet we're in we have this allegiance with them. We have these different alliances with Germany included, and we deal with Germany all the time. Like, I really do think it has something to do with the size and the threat that is presented with Russia, but I also think that there's something else there. Just that doesn't it doesn't mesh well with me. It doesn't sit well to think that it's just you know, a size, a threat of like their size and their power. I think there's something more there, and I can't put my finger on what it is, but I just don't understand, because they are technically part of Europe, and in my opinion, they should be kind of lumped in with all of that. Like, why have we not been able to repair relations with Russia throughout all of the different things that have gone on between the two countries, between our country and their country? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, and Putin's been in power for a long time. He's had relationships with most U.S. presidents. He was like real tight with Bush. Like, I don't get it. I don't get the disconnect as to why it's been such anti-Russia propaganda from this country after the Cold War ended, after, you know, the Soviet Union was broken up. I mean, why have bygones not been bygones? I don't get it. I don't get it. I think that, like, it would be smart for us to make partners with Russia. It would be smart with us to have a relationship with them as a country. Like, and same thing with China. Like, I don't know. It just makes me think that it's more like so the military-industrial complex driving U.S. foreign policy, and it's like the 1984 book, you know, like war is the underlying cause. It is the money machine. It is the driving force behind the reason why we can't have peace in the world, or at least more peace than we would have now, you know, because what reason is there to not do, you know, business, not going to have relations with these countries? Yes, like, just because they're not the exact same as we, doesn't mean that we need to make enemies of them. It's really just seems very simple and like childish, you know, to even say all of this, but I know it's more complex, and I get it. There's all these different factors, but it's very funny. It's very curious to me to hear him say this, and it kind of rings true. I'm not going to lie.
States in a very soft, prudent, cautious manner. I repeatedly raised the issue that the United States should not support separatism or terrorism in the North Caucasus. But they continue to do it anyway. And political support, information support, financial support, even military support came from the United States and its satellites for terrorist groups in the Caucasus. I once raised this issue with my colleague, also the President of the United States. He says, "It's impossible. Do you have proof?" I said, "Yes." I was prepared for this conversation, and I gave him that proof. He looked at it, and you know what he said? I apologize, but that's what happened. I'll quote. He says, "Well, I'm gonna kick their ass." We waited and waited for some response. There was no reply. I said to the FSB director, "Write to the CIA, what is the result of the conversation with President?" He wrote once, twice, and then we got a reply. We have the answer in the archive. The CIA replied, "We have been working with the opposition in Russia. We believe that this is the right thing to do, and we will keep on doing it." Just ridiculous. Well, okay. We realized that it was out of the question.
Forces in opposition to you. So you're saying the CIA is trying to overthrow your government?
Of course, they meant in that particular case the separatists, the terrorists who fought with us in the Caucasus. That's who they called the opposition. This is the second point. The third moment is a very important one, is the moment when the US missile defense system was created. The beginning. We persuaded for a long time not to do it in the United States. Moreover, after was invited by Bush Jr.'s father, Bush Sr., to visit his place on the ocean, I had a very serious conversation with President Bush and his team. I proposed that the United States, Russia, and Europe jointly create a missile defense system that, we believe, if created unilaterally, threatens our security, despite the fact that the United States officially said that it was being created against missile threats from Iran. That was the justification for the deployment of the missile defense system. I suggested working together, Russia, the United States, and Europe. They said it was very interesting. They asked me, "Are you serious?" I said, "Absolutely."
Let me ask, what year was this?
I don't remember. It is easy to find out on the internet when I was in the USA at the invitation of Bush Sr.
Okay,
It is
girl,
even
but you remember every other damn thing. Look at that face. The shade child, honey girl. Okay, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at you sideways because you knew the year, like, 1326 and Russia was this and Ukraine was that, but you don't know whenever you went to go see Bush Sr., the CIA criminal. Okay. Okay.
US told us, "Calm Yanukovych down and we will calm the opposition. Let the situation unfold in the scenario of a political settlement." We said, "All right, agreed, let's do it this way." As the Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then US leadership.
With the backing of whom?
Hello.
With the backing of CIA, of course.
Oh my
The
God.
organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although, it is a serious
Tucker's on
organization.
hush mouth.
I understand. My former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the 1st Main Directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service. They have always been our opponents. A job is a job. Technically, they did everything right. They achieved their goal of changing the government. However, from political standpoint, it was a colossal mistake. Surely it was political leadership's miscalculation. They should have seen what it would evolve into. So, in 2008, the doors of NATO were opened for Ukraine. In 2014, there was a coup. They started persecuting those who did not accept the coup, and it was indeed a coup. They created the threat to Crimea, which we had to take under our protection. They launched a war in Donbass in 2014 with the use of aircraft and artillery against civilians. This is when it all started. There is a video of aircraft attacking Donetsk from above. They launched a large-scale military operation, then another one. When they failed, they started to prepare the next one. All this against the background of military development of this territory and opening of NATO's doors.
So not him accusing the U.S. CIA of a color revolution and a coup in Ukraine in 2014, which is actually 100% true and very a little known, I think, to majority of the American public in the understanding of the reasons for why we have the war that is currently going on now, and not him calling out Tucker for almost becoming a CIA agent himself. Okay. This was the pearl snatched moment right here. Okay. this was a mic drop moment. This was probably the first time that, throughout this interview, that my ears really perked up, and I was like, okay, heard. And I think it's important for people to be hearing him say things like this, and to, whether you believe it or not, for there to be discussion about this, and for there to be further, like, probative measures taken into this, because it seems to be 100% true. Vladimir Zelensky was an actor who liked to play the piano with his ding-a-ling, and then somehow got placed as the head of state for Ukraine out of seemingly nowhere. Okay, how did that happen? Oh, I don't know. And are you guys are you guys aware that the U.S. in fact does, like, all the time, perform coups and color revolutions within other countries' borders, meaning that our agencies support measures to upend governments in foreign countries and to change their policies and their governments based on what we want, the U.S. agencies, alphabet agencies, as opposed to what the people of those countries want. And yet they clutch their fucking pearls over January 6th, when that was nothing compared to some of the violence that they inflict on the people of these foreign countries, in which they do these coups and, create havoc and chaos for the people of foreign nations. You might want to ask yourself that, and really start to wonder who the bad guys are in these scenarios. I don't know.
To extort additional money from US taxpayers and European taxpayers in the confrontation with Russia in the Ukrainian theater of war. The goal is to weaken. They have been scaring everyone with us all along. Tomorrow Russia will use tactical nuclear weapons. Tomorrow Russia will use that. No, the day after tomorrow. So what? In order to extort additional money from US taxpayers and European taxpayers in the confrontation with Russia in the Ukrainian theater of war. The goal is to weaken Russia as much as possible.
One of our senior United States senators from the state of New York, Chuck Schumer, said yesterday, I believe, that we have to continue to fund the Ukrainian effort, or US soldiers, citizens could wind up fighting there. How do you assess that?
Fucking retard moment.
This is a provocation, and a cheap provocation at that. I do not understand why American soldiers should fight in Ukraine. There are mercenaries from the United States there. The bigger number of mercenaries comes from Poland, with mercenaries from the United States in second place, and mercenaries from Georgia in third place. Well, if somebody has the desire to send regular troops, that would certainly bring humanity to the brink of very serious global conflict. This is obvious. Do the United States need this? What for? Thousands of miles away from your national territory. Don't you have anything better to do? You have issues on the border, issues with migration, issues with the national debt, more than $33 trillion. You have nothing better to do, so you should fight in Ukraine?
Exactly. Thank you.
Wouldn't it be better to negotiate with Russia? Make an agreement, already understanding the situation that is developing today, realizing that Russia will fight for its interests to the end?
Amen, brother.
And realizing this, actually return to common sense, start respecting our country and its interests, and look for certain solutions. It seems to me that this is much smarter and more rational.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
Oh!
You for sure.
I was busy that day.
Jokes. LOL.
Nate, do you have I did not blow up Nord Stream. Thank you, though.
He's funny. Oh, he's funny.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
Did you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
Oh my god. Oof. Hello?
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested.
Oof.
But in this case, we should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion.
Oh my.
These two components should be connected. Who is interested and who is capable of doing it?
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism.
Oh my God.
It damages the US economy, undermines the power of the United States across the world. By the way, our transactions in yuan accounted for about 3%. Today, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles, and about as much, a little over 34% in yuan. Why did the United States do this? My only guess is self-conceit. They probably thought it would lead to full collapse, but nothing collapsed. Moreover, other countries, including oil producers, are thinking of and already accepting payments for oil in yuan. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this? What are you doing? You are cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US.
But
You're killing it with your own hands.
I think that's I think it's a fair assessment. The question is what comes next, and maybe you trade one colonial power for another, much less sentimental and forgiving colonial power. I mean, is the BRICS, for example, in danger of being completely dominated by the Chinese economy, in a way that's not good for their sovereignty? Do you worry about that?
Well, we have heard those boogeyman stories before. It is a boogeyman story. We're neighbors with China. You cannot choose neighbors just as you cannot choose close relatives.
So he said, I ain't scared, motherfucker. Bring it on. Okay. All right. Well, that was pretty much where we're going to go ahead and stop that. But overall, interesting interview. Definitely something to consume if you haven't, just for your own knowledge, just for your own sake, because they don't want you to see it. But yeah, Russia said, fuck around and find out, China. If you want some, come get some. So I don't really think he's scared. Okay. But I think that people can say that he's disingenuous. People can say that his message was full of lies and just propaganda or whatever. I don't know. I think he genuinely wants some sort of semblance of peace and would like to make partners out of the U.S. I think that that's a great idea. Also, I think that we should make partners with any large country that has, some sort of give and take relationship where we can benefit some and maybe they can benefit some. Why is it in our best interest to fight with everyone? It's just not. You can't convince me that it is. People that maybe genuinely hate us, like Iran or places in the Middle East, and they hate us for reasons too that are, complex and have something to do with, the fact that we've gone into their countries and destroyed them a lot. But, if they're going to have this like deep-seated hatred of us over, those misguided, things that happened in the past. And, I don't think it has to do with just that. I think it also has to do with the religion of Islam not being compatible. But that's another story for another day. I just think that, and also the Middle East is really not all that powerful. Like, there are certain countries that are, but for the most part, they're kind of the black sheep of the world, if you will. They're I think for the most part, people can all get together and tell the Middle East to go fuck themselves if they get too rowdy over there. But I think with China and with Russia, yeah, I think that better relations need to be had with those countries, and we should be working on repairing those things instead of working on two different world wars on two different fronts that are seemingly asinine and just pointless, in my opinion. But it was a good interview. It was boring a lot of times, slow talking, answering the questions in a very circular manner. Tucker giving a little bit of pushback, but also on the verge of not wanting to end up like other, American journalists who are currently sitting in prison, which he did ask Putin about that, and he gave another, well, maybe, but probably not, or we're going to release this guy, and just whatever. Like I said, it kind of did so, in my opinion, to be least favorable of Putin after this interview. I still don't think he's this, horrible boogeyman that everyone wants us to think that he is. And I think for the most part, like I said, I have respect for his patriotism towards his own country and his leadership skills and for turning Russia around and, you know, making it into something more than it was whenever he took over as the leader of that country. So props to him for that, and respect, you know, respect to both Tucker and Vladimir Putin. But somebody who I don't have respect for is an old, decrepit retard that runs our country, Joe Biden.
Special Counsel Robert Hur cleared President Biden of wrongdoing in his handling of classified documents, but his report made repeated references to Biden's memory and ability to recall certain events, including when Biden served as vice president and when his son died.
I've seen the headlines since the report was released about my willful retention of documents. These assertions are not only misleading, they're just plain wrong. In addition, I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. I was pleased to see he reached a firm conclusion that no charges should be brought against me in this case.
The decision to include those observations drew blowback from White House allies and some former Justice Department officials who felt Hur went beyond his mandate in offering assessments of Biden's memory.
My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president.
Girl?
None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed.
What?
How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Look, here's the thing. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded. In that.
Former Attorney General Eric Holder called her.
He forgot how bad his fucking memory is. He forgot how much of a loose cannon and an idiot that he is. You're too old and stupid, and you're just a doddering old fool who would come across to the jury as being completely unfit and unable to take accountability for your actions. That's not a good thing, Joe Biden, in case you didn't know, or did you forget?
Report, quote, flatly inconsistent with DOJ traditions.
Whatever, girl.
Biden's personal attorney and his White House special counsel argued Hur is not an expert on memory or cognitive abilities and should have revised or omitted some of the language about the president's recall that was included in the report.
Well, I think you see today in the statement that was released by the president's personal lawyers, in the statement that was released by the president's personal attorney after the search of the Wilmington house, I think that they believe that, some of the materials that were seen and were taken, they appear to relate to his time as vice president. I think that, they want to make sure that the Justice Department has access to the information that they need to sift through materials as part of this ongoing investigation. And so, I'm not going to characterize too much of the underlying contents, but, I think we've spoken to why certain materials may have been taken and what they could have related to.
The frequent mentions of Biden's memory clearly touched a nerve with the president, who angrily lashed out at the report during a press conference. The president was particularly furious over the mention of his son's death, saying of Hur, quote, how in the dare he?
There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the dare he raise that?
Did you just say the F word? Hello? Girl? What? Okay. Well, did you remember or not? Did you forget that you didn't remember when beloved Bo died? Okay. I mean, you're just absolutely, what a world, what a country this is. Just completely, we're all fucked to the highest degree, okay? So just some of the findings, okay, from this special counsel report. Hur laid out in detail how Biden mishandled classified materials, writing that FBI agents discovered materials from the garage, offices, and basement den in Mr. Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home. The materials included classified documents, including some marked at the highest, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information level related to military and foreign policy in Afghanistan, as well as and notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries about issues of national security and foreign policy implicating sensitive intelligence source and methods. Okay? And you all, well, not you all, but like whoever is out there that freaked the fuck out about Trump and his damn documents, I need you all to take a seat, because he had all of this, okay, before becoming president, which is what Trump was when he had his documents. Okay, so Joe Biden was not privy to having any of this that he had. And he is a criminal and he should have been charged. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we have not seen an impeachment yet against Joe Biden and that charges are not going to be filed in this case. I don't care how old and sympathetic he comes across to a jury. Put him through trial. If Trump has to go through trial, why doesn't he? It's just so ridiculous. I mean, God bless him for putting in the mentions of his like horrible memory and the fact that he couldn't even remember when he was vice president. But it's not enough. It still is not enough. Charges should have been filed. And I'm sure he was under massive amounts of pressure to not do that, but it's ridiculous. So the special counsel raised Biden's age and memory in explaining why he didn't bring charges. We have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations. Hur wrote in another passage, adding that his conversations with his ghostwriter from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. And so he said that this was in 2017. Joe Biden was having these conversations with his ghostwriter. Okay, and he couldn't even remember shit at that time. And we're now in what, 2023? Okay. So he also listed other reasons for not prosecuting Biden. The memory and age-related passages are sure to become campaign fodder for Trump and Republicans who have already made the president's age a key part of the campaign. So Hur says evidence didn't support charging the president, but yet he willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after leaving office. Okay. And then what y'all said that Trump did and why it was necessary to bring charges against him? Isn't that what y'all said? I don't know. Weird. Interesting. So, after leaving office, Biden worked with a ghostwriter for his memoir and told the writer in a recorded conversation that he had just found all the classified stuff downstairs, which investigators believe referred to his home he was renting in Virginia. And he shared these things. He shared them. And people were absolutely having meltdowns over Trump supposedly waving around a map talking about Afghanistan to a reporter, and Biden was over there showing his classified materials he had no business having to a damn ghostwriter. I mean, what the fuck? What is this damn country? A joke. Investigators believe the evidence suggests Biden was referring to classified documents about the Afghanistan troop surge in 2009, which FBI agents later found in his garage in Delaware. Hur's report said the best case for charges would rely on Biden possessing classified documents in 2017, since it was after he had left the vice presidency and before he became president in 2021. But the report says several defenses are likely to create reasonable doubt as to such charges. For example, Biden could have found the classified Afghanistan documents at his home in Virginia in 2017 and then forgotten about them soon after. This could convince some reasonable jurors that he did not retain them willfully, the report says. Well, there you go. Trump should use that defense because, I mean, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for Trump, right? So, and then he tried to say in his report the reason and the main difference between Donald Trump's case and Joe Biden's case is the fact that after many chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. Well, you know, charge it to the game there, my guy, because you people have been going after this man for years now. And I'm so sorry that, you know, he felt as president that he had the power to do so. And he had just gotten out of office like within months, year to, you know, leaving. And so he was still going through some of those things. He was still trying to figure out what he had to give up in regards to the documents and give to the National Archives that they were requesting. So, you know, just completely miss me with the bullshit, because absolutely fucking not. It's a shit show. It's a clown show at this point. I don't care. I didn't care about the documents before, and I sure as hell don't care about them now. Furthermore, the report stated that during an interview with investigators, Biden could not recall the dates of his 2009 to 2017 vice presidency or recall that his son Beau died in May 2015. When did I stop being vice president? Said Biden at one point, according to the report. In 2009, am I still vice president? Yeah, my guy, sir, Biden, you fucktard. You were just becoming vice president in 2009. You know, just not even surprising at all. You know, the spoiler alert, Biden's a fucking idiot, okay? Biden is gone. He's a long goner, okay? He might be a clone at this point. We're not sure. He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died, and his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said he had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact Eikenberry was an ally whom Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. So Biden was not too happy with this, and he had another angry, Dark Brandon moment at this press conference where he yelled at everyone into a microphone as per usual, as is his style, and got real upset and flabbergasted. So let's take a look at some of those moments, and then we'll jump on out of here.
About my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died.
But we begin today with the White House and damage control over the special counsel report that described the president as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The president hit back last night, but did it help or make things worse? Here's Les Trent.
The White House is on damage control today, scrambling after last night's fiasco of a press conference. The president losing his temper with reporters after the special counsel questioned his mental acuity.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment.
He was particularly angry at the suggestion that he couldn't remember when his son Beau died.
How in the hell dare he raise that? I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away.
And then, just as he insisted that he was mentally sharp, he made a huge blunder, referring to the president of Egypt as the president of Mexico.
The president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate.
Mexico? Where did that come from? I mean, that's the only thing anyone's going to remember from this.
Okay,
Mexico?
Tubin?
I mean,
really? You got Yankum Tubin up here who couldn't keep his wiener in his pants for long enough to have a damn work meeting. Okay, this is what kind of country we live in, guys. They got this guy up here commenting on how much of a, old doddering idiot Biden is while he's doing God knows what underneath the desk. Let's see those hands, Tubin.
I mean, politically, how do you explain that?
Now he's getting slammed from all sides.
We just saw an unmitigated disaster play out before our very eyes.
Yesterday was absolutely the worst day of Joe Biden's presidency. He shot himself in the foot. He looked terrible.
This is becoming a 5-alarm fire for the White House.
Many Democratic power brokers are reportedly in panic mode today, suggesting the special counsel was politically motivated.
The comments that were made by that prosecutor, gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate.
The president faced another barrage of questions today as he hosted the Chancellor of Germany, but did not respond. He just grinned.
Yeah, he thinks it's hilarious.
Biden's personal attorney accused the special counsel of violating
He's laughing at you all. I hope you know that.
But first, we are going to begin with President Biden's fiery response to the special counsel's report on his handling of classified documents. The special counsel found no criminal charges are warranted, but also details about his age, memory, and mental acuity.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because
look at his face, look at his face. Close your mouth!
You are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president.
Oh, we've seen it.
None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Yeah,
I did not share classified information.
Yes,
I
you
did
did.
not share it. With your ghostwriter? With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
What?
The
Special
counsel said no, he did not say that.
Okay.
Are you a liar or what?
Let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And it was multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said it should be private, because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what he's referring to. It was not classified information in that document.
He sits on a bed of lies, okay, and he just bathes in deceit and utter idiocracy, okay? Fucking failure of a man, of a administration, of a life, really, if you ask me. We hate to see it. At the same time, because of our country and everything, it's not good. It's not good at all. But at the same time, we love to see it because Joe Biden is a criminal and a piece of shit. And I have no love lost for that man at all. At all. He's a joke and he laughs at all of us. So I laugh back at him. And I say to you, sir, it's well deserved. I couldn't think of a better person for all of this to come down on. Even though it's not really coming down on him yet, there's still hope that we'd all like to see Joe Biden in a prison cell. But don't hold your breath, guys. But until next time, y'all subscribe if you want to see more like this. Like the video if you liked it, and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the interview with Putin and Tucker, and what you think about the current state of affairs with Biden, and how much of a, incompetent person that he is. And he's currently running our country. Very terrifying thought. So until next time, guys, y'all take it easy out there, and please subscribe to the channel. I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.
I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.